So, how do you actually know when it's time to leave your relationship? That's probably one of the questions I get asked more than anything else. And if you're watching this, you're either just starting to think about that or you've been thinking about it for a long time, maybe a really long time. And I just want to say right at the start, the fact that you don't have an answer right now actually makes total sense because it's not as simple as people make it seem. And I want to talk about why and then get into three specific situations where I do think leaving is worth seriously considering. I'm Karen, I'm a relationship coach, and I work with women who are unhappy in their relationships and just don't know what comes next. So let's get into it. Here's the thing I notice a lot when I'm working with women who are in this place. They'll say, I don't know what to do. I can't figure out what's going to be the right thing. And what I really know is happening is it's actually more of a self-trust problem than a decision-making problem. She has plenty of experience with the relationship. She knows what it's been like, but she doesn't fully trust her own read on it anymore because she's been second guessing herself for so long. And that's what makes it so hard to answer. So let's talk about those three situations where I do think it's worth really considering leaving the relationship. Okay, so the first and second reasons are actually very connected. And it's when neither of you wants to work on the relationship anymore. But it can actually look two different ways. And that's why I'm going to distinguish them. Sometimes your partner will just tell you straight up they're not going to change. And actually, I had this happen recently. A woman told me that he's been very clear with her that this is him, this is how he is, and he's not going to change. And he even said that he's waiting for her to make the decision. This is a very clear message, and it still doesn't make it easy, right? Even if you know it's the right thing to do, ending a relationship, especially with someone that you've been in a relationship with for years and years or decades, and that you share a family with, this is always going to be hard. So I absolutely understand. It's not something you jump out of bed excited to do. But if your partner has been really clear with you and said, hey, I know you don't like all of these things that are happening, but this is what it is, then yes, I want you to consider that maybe staying in the relationship is not going to be the best thing for you. Because here's the reality. You're not going to get what you're looking for from this person. And if you continue to stay in the relationship where you know you're not getting the things that you want in terms of healthy communication, co-parenting, feeling like you have a real partner who's invested in the relationship as you are, then those are all parts of you that are really important and it absolutely makes sense. And I want you to want those things. But if you decide to stay in the relationship without them because he's saying he's definitely not going to give them to you in the way you're asking, then that's a really big part of you that you're just going to be deciding to push to the side and keep in a box, trying to ignore something, another piece of yourself. It's that self-abandonment that I bet has actually been a struggle for quite a while now. And then it just keeps you stuck in this pattern. And then there's the second reason, which is a different version of this. And that's when you've actually been really trying, and maybe it has seemed like he's been trying, but you're not getting enough from him despite all of your best efforts and despite trying to have all of the conversations. It's still not what you want for yourself. And if he's been telling you, yes, I want to work on it. Yes, I agree. Yes, this is important to me. But then you're not seeing the action behind it. It can make it a little harder because the words are right, but the feeling is wrong. And eventually, when all of this catches up, you start thinking, no, this is definitely not enough. And it doesn't matter what he's saying because you've been trying for so long and it hasn't worked. And so now you're just done. And then he might really come back and be like, hey, wait, I'm sorry, I didn't do the things right. And maybe he's ready to do all the things now that you've been asking him for years. But at this point, you're tired of putting in all of that effort that you've been doing by yourself for all of this time. And you may just be done with it. When I do see women continue on from this point, it's because they know they're done, but they feel like they should at least go through the motions of trying or putting in enough effort now that he's actually doing it. But deep down, they're just checking a box because they know that they're done. And if that's the case, I will often recommend let's start thinking about what it's going to look like when you go and when the relationship does end, because it can be an inevitability at that point, and you're just buying time. Okay, the third reason is different from the other two. It's about when you have kids, and it can be any age, right? When you have kids in the home, if they're young or if they're teenagers, it doesn't matter, whatever that is. And that's when maybe you and your partner have decided, listen, we're just going to stick it out until the kids are older, but you both know you're unhappy and you're not really willing to do the work because you know the relationship is going to end at whatever time in the future. And you're just biding your time until the kids are old enough or out of the house. And in the first two examples also, I want you to consider the kids for the same reason that I'm going to give you here in just a minute. But especially in this one, I really want to highlight it because if you guys are miserable and frustrated and not getting along, and it's just generally a tense and unhappy situation, you're doing more of a disservice than helping your kids out when you stay together like that. Because as I talked about in an earlier video, your kids don't benefit just because two of you are in the household if both of you are unhappy. What you're doing is providing them the example they're going to have for what a marriage or a relationship looks like. And if that example isn't good, or if that example is the two of you not getting along, not having fun, not enjoying each other's company, not really communicating, that's what they're going to think about relationships growing up. Or at least it's going to have a huge influence on them. And something that I always like to point out is it's not just the absence of the negative, because I hear sometimes also a woman will say, oh, we don't really fight. We keep our fights separate. We do it when the kids aren't home or at night when they're asleep. And what I always say is if they're in the house, they're probably hearing a lot more than you think they are, first of all. And it's not just about the absence of the negative stuff, right? It's not just if they don't see you fighting, but it's also about getting to see all of the good things in a relationship that you want to model for your kids. That's that positive stuff, the laughter, the joy, how to repair, how to communicate, how to disagree in a healthy way and show your kids that you can do that and still get along. So if the example you're giving them is none of the good stuff, then I'm always going to say that they're really missing out on so much. And because of that, it is better to see two happy parents that are separated than have them together under the same roof, just barely getting by. So those are the three situations, and they're really important to think about and to take into consideration because this is the life that you get to live for yourself. What do you want it to look like? I don't want anyone to feel like they have to give up all of these pieces of themselves just to get by. As always, I don't ever have an agenda for what I'm saying you need to do in your relationship when I'm working with someone. But I do want you to consider all of these things so at least you're making the choice with really good information so that you don't end up second guessing yourself later, because that's almost always the fear that women come to me with when they're in this place, not wanting to regret the decision they make later. All right, I hope this was helpful for you. And if you watched this whole video and you want to go deeper into any of this, the patterns, why it's so hard to get clear, what's actually going on underneath all of that, I have a free masterclass that I want you to check out. And if you're ready to get some personal guidance and figure out what those next steps actually look like for you, you can book a free call with me. I'll see you in the next video.